And with us now to talk about animal therapies in our region, we have Sherry Eddy. And Sherry is from Animal Inspirations LLC and Pet Partners. She's from Glencoe. And we also have from Sacred Heart, Ray Miller. And Ray is with the Lemar Ranch Equine Center of Granite Falls. So Sherry, Ray, thanks for joining us. Sherry, I'd like to start with you because I know you, before we started the program here, you told me that you'd started this business in around 2000, so you're a sole proprietor going out into this world of animal therapy. Tell me about Animal Inspirations.
Animal Inspirations is an organization that started off as a professional dog training program, and as I got more experienced and at the animal-assisted interventions with clients, and organizations who work with clients with disabilities. I have specialized now into helping other people be able to train their pets and get them ready for this type of work.
So give me an example of the sort of thing that you would do. For example, if there's someone that contacts you and there's a patient, what is the kind of thing that you would do in the recovery process?
Okay, so if they have clients that would be inspired to, motivated to reach their goals through the interactions with an animal. And I would discuss with their staff exactly what goals they're working for and bring in the appropriate animal that is trained to do the interactions that would get the client working towards those goals.
So the animal can actually help them in a sense because they'll be more inspired to work with an animal if there's an animal there as opposed to saying, do these 10 exercises on your own.
Absolutely. So there's an emotional connection we have with animals that you don't have with a mechanical machine. For instance, if you're working on some upper body range of motion exercises and they were to have you do something mechanical by lifting your hands over your head a number of times to work your shoulders and your arms, that client is going to likely be able to do an interaction with an animal much longer, harder and faster without even realizing it when they're working with a dog. And on that example, that could be if the animal is out on a cart that is extended about 20 feet out with a cord that has tennis balls and knots strung into it, and then the client is pulling in the dog on the cart. They're getting the same motion and exercise. The dog comes up to them. The dog is happy to see them now that they're close. They give the dog a treat. The cart is pushed out, and they do it again. And they'll do that often many more times and work harder and more steadfast than they would if they're working with the more mechanical means.
Sure. And Ray, I know in your work at the Lemar Ranch Equine Center, what you've seen is it's been, and I should mention this is a nonprofit, when you've got about 120 volunteers, so you're working with horses, but a lot of your work really has involved autistic kids, correct?
Basically, most of our clients are autistic. We have all range. We have cerebral palsy and muscular dystrophy and brain injuries and all kinds of special needs. But basically, we've had the best success with autism.
Yeah. Now, I know one time when we were having a chat about this, you'd mentioned that you've seen kids who will come in and there'll be a remarkable difference from the time that you first put them on a horse until watching what their behavior is like after many, many weeks or perhaps even years. So tell us about that.
We have kids that come in that are behavior problems usually, and sometimes, and every kid's different, they have a different disability range, from low to high, but some of the kids come in and sometimes you can't get them on the horse. For a while they're scared of the horse, the horse being so big. But after we once get them on the horse, through all our different interventions and ways, we usually always get them on within never more than 6 weeks. But then after we get them on, then sometimes we can't get them off. So what it does is it just relaxes the kids, it soothes them, it gives them a sense of, here they are, a 60-pound kid on a 12 or 1,500-pound horse, and they're in control. They can steer them and guide them, and it's kind of like when they ride the bike for the first time, they get this exhilaration of freedom and movement, and it just calms them. It just calms them and relaxes them. Their behavior changes. They become more mellow for longer periods of times. And so a lot of the clients we have been with us 5-6 years.
And then what happens is that the calming influence, then I know you said you've had parents or grandparents who've come in and said, I can't believe the difference.
We've had grandparents on the way home would call us back and say, Oh, these kids, it's just a miracle. It's just amazing how they're just calm and quiet. They've never been this way, and so it's the when they ride, they also get that feeling of the rhythm. They can get that feel, the bunches of the muscles on the horse just relaxes them, and they just get really calm, and it's very successful.
So I expect for both of you in what you do, one of the things that you run across is people who may not have heard of this therapy before, they may not have considered it. It's a completely new idea for a lot of concepts. So Sherry, if people are considering this, or if they're intrigued by it, what would you tell them about how to sort of learn more about this?
Well, there are more opportunities now to be able to go out and learn about this. Often you can find somebody that teaches a class on working with a therapy animal, how to get that animal trained and ready. I think realistically you have to expect an investment of time and some money, because it's going to, the wellness care and the training and the time it takes to socialize an animal out in the community so that it feels just as comfortable working with strangers in the community as it does in your living room with your family takes time, and there are right and wrong ways to go about doing that.
Sure. And I know, Ray, in your case, you talked about how people come to this, and in some cases because it's a community organized event, there may be people who come to you who they're sponsored by a local club, for example, who helps to fund the cost of the sessions.
Yeah, we cover a 5-county area, and so we do mostly through school districts, where schools we get notified through them, that way. And then most of them are local. They come from local areas, so like a local JCs or Kiwanis or Service Club will help them pay the tuition, and they can get financial help through service clubs, social services, insurance. We have a scholarship fund. A lot of them just pay their own, whatever. So.
And while equine therapy has been around and recognized nationally for quite a long time, and there's been a little more discussion about it. I know in your work, Sherry, there's therapy dogs. We've heard a lot about therapy dogs, but there's other changes there about where this might go in the future for other animals, right?
Yes, there is. There's other types of animals outside of dogs that can be utilized as therapy animals. They're domestic animals, but they include rabbits and cats and rats and alpacas and llamas and birds. So in that respect, we're going to go, things are moving from the volunteer worker into more of a professional level. And so they're referred to as professional animal-assisted intervention practitioners. And
that's a handful.
Yep. As the medical communities and healthcare communities take more of an interest in this, we're coming out of our infancy in the small animal programs and growing a little bit more and learning more about best practices and standardizing how these things are done for the safety and efficacy of the programs.
And I suppose, as with so much variety in the programs as well, it's often situations where people are worried about affording these things. It's difficult to say exactly, because it's going to depend on how many visits, what's the animal, what's the location, all of those kinds of things, because whether you're in an urban area or a rural area, or whether you're, it's a long process or a short process. So I suppose it's a lot, very, very different for each individual.
Absolutely, yep. And the whole industry, as the healthcare communities take more interest in this, and the educational communities take more interest in this, it isn't just the healthcare industry. Students can really benefit from this. Young people can benefit from this too, as these organizations take a little bit more of an interest in this. More research will be done, more data will be out, and then hopefully more funding will be available to make these more attainable.
Sure, because that's with any new sort of therapy or anything that's emerging, it takes the systems that we have for healthcare a while to catch up to it.
It does.
Yeah. Ray, in your work, I know it's kind of interesting too for people who love horses. One of the questions that will come up with, how do you know that the animals? Because people often will have a fear of horses, because you said they're quite large. But it was fascinating. You're working strictly with quarter horses and older quarter horses, right?
Right. We found out through kind of experience, the younger ones are more excitable than the older ones. So 12 years on is usually really good for us. Most of our horses average between the 18 and 28-year-old range, and they're what we call bomb-proof, so they don't shy and spook. And with our program, when a client rides a horse, there's a leader and 2 sidewalkers, and then sometimes an instructor in certain situations that follows the horse. So 3 to 4 people per animal, just in case of accidents. But the horses are, the older the better.
Yeah. And when you say bomb-proof, in other words, means, if there's a big noise, they're not going to jump, they don't spook, which is always the issue with, again, for people who may have some concerns about animals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've had things like that happen, and the horses handle it better than the people.
As we close out this program, I'd like to always leave our viewers with some ideas of where they can go for more information. We touched on that earlier, but Sherry, for Animal Inspirations or for general understanding of pet therapies, what would you recommend they do?
I would recommend that they look at the Pet Partner website, petpartners.org.
Okay.
That's the national organization that registers therapy dogs and other domestic animals. And they are really on the professional level, and they focus a lot on educating the handler. Or they can contact me at Animal Inspirations too.
Okay. and you're in Glencoe, Minnesota.
I am in Glencoe, yes.
Okay. And of course, Ray, Limar Ranch is in Granite Falls, Minnesota. But if people want to learn more about, the equine therapy, what should they do?
We have a website, and also word of mouth is usually the best. We have really good success with, you're welcome to come and watch our programs at any time. We have a spring, summer, and a fall session that usually lasts from 6 to 9 weeks. And our first one now starts on the 13th of April this spring.
Okay.
And so if anybody wants to come, but they can contact the Limar Ranch Equine Center and ask for any information.
And I should mention, it's just on Highway 212 in Granite Falls. I drove by it just earlier today, so it's a great program. So Ray Miller and Sherry Eddy, that's all the time we have for now, but thank you for joining us on this episode of Compass.
Thank you.